There was a moment when Simon Cowell sat completely still. Not the rehearsed stillness of a television personality. Real stillness. The kind that happens when something unexpected pierces through years of industry armor. It was 2016, and a 15-year-old girl from a village so small most maps don't include it had just shattered every expectation anyone had brought into that audition room. Her name was Courtney Hadwin. Within weeks, her performance would reach 200 million views. Within years, she would disappear entirely. Not from the internet. From everything. And what her story reveals about the entertainment industry, about how we nurture talent and then consume it, is something the machine never wanted examined this closely. Let's walk through what happened. Because the real story goes far deeper than a viral moment and a record deal. Courtney Hadwin's story begins in the kind of place where nothing extraordinary is supposed to happen. A quiet English village. A girl who couldn't speak. Not literally, but practically. Severe social anxiety meant that outside her immediate family, Courtney was nearly silent. 100 words a year to the outside world. That was her existence. Teachers noted it. Family understood it. By every conventional measure, she was trapped. But alone, in her room, in the shower, in the privacy of her own body, Courtney possessed something that most people spend their entire lives searching for, a voice that was undeniably, unmistakably extraordinary. Not good. Not talented. Extraordinary. The kind of voice that stops conversations. The kind that makes grown men in leather chairs sit motionless. It was a voice that didn't match anything else about her. The anxious girl and the feral vocalist existed as two completely separate people living in one body. She was 9 years old when she watched Britain's Got Talent. A girl her age on stage. And something inside Courtney shifted. Not inspiration, recognition. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. That's not what she said later. That's what she would have said if she could have articulated it then. She just knew. By age 14, a phone video of Courtney singing at a school event found its way onto the internet. The contrast was jarring. The anxious girl nobody had heard speak transformed into something raw, uncontainable, feral. People shared it. Then more people. The video accumulated millions of views. BBC came to her school. News outlets wanted interviews with a girl who could barely complete sentences. She auditioned for The Voice Kids UK at 15. Made it further than anyone expected. But The Voice was controlled, trained, designed for the show's format. America's Got Talent was different. Bigger. Rawer. When Courtney stepped onto that AGT stage in 2016, something extraordinary happened. The anxious girl didn't vanish gradually. She evaporated completely. What replaced her was pure, unfiltered vocal power. She performed Les Miserables. The audience exploded. Simon Cowell, the man who has heard thousands of performances, who is famous for his withering commentary, sat with his jaw clenched, visibly affected. He called her a lion. He called her voice extraordinary. 60 million people would watch that clip. The views climbed to 200 million. YouTube featured her on the homepage. She finished 6th in the competition, but the real prize had already arrived. A recording contract with Arista Records and Psycho Music, Simon Cowell's label. At 15, Courtney Hadwin had achieved what most artists work their entire lives to accomplish. The machine noticed her. And the machine, it turned out, had very specific plans. The transformation from audition phenomenon to psycho artist began immediately and methodically. Record labels work fast when they sense commercial potential. They also work systematically. Within weeks, Courtney was in studios, not with producers who understood her raw power, but with committee-appointed professionals who understood market viability. There were conversations about radio-friendly sound, about crossover appeal, about broadening demographics. What they meant was, sand down the rough edges. Courtney's extraordinary voice was undeniable, but it was also unsettling. It had sharp edges. It didn't fit neatly into any existing format. Radio stations want predictability. Streaming algorithms prefer familiarity. The industry wasn't interested in a feral teenage vocalist. It was interested in a product it could position, market, and sell. In 2017, Courtney released an EP of covers. Not songs she chose. Not songs that reflected her artistic voice. Songs selected by committee, decisions made in meetings where Courtney wasn't present, for audiences she didn't know, to fit formats that weren't hers. The EP was competent. It was also generic. For the first time, critics noted something unsettling. The Courtney on the AGT stage, the lion, was gone. In her place was a technically proficient vocalist performing someone else's vision. She was still a teenager, still learning who she was as an artist. And the industry had already decided who she should be. But what comes next is where the real story begins, because in 2018, something happened that would change everything. In 2020, Psycho Music shut down. No warning. No phone calls to the artists they had signed. Courtney found out through the news. Not through management. Not through a meeting. Through the news. She was 18 years old, a global name with 200 million people who had watched her extraordinary moment, and suddenly she had no label, no support system, no infrastructure, and no phone ringing. What happened to Courtney Hadwin in 2020 was not unique to her story. It's the reality for thousands of artists signed to major labels. You get discovered. You get promises. You get a contract. Then you get forgotten. The industry moves on. There are new viral moments every week. New teenagers with extraordinary voices. Courtney wasn't a person. She was inventory. And inventory gets liquidated. But Courtney's situation was worse than most because she had never developed her own independent infrastructure. She hadn't built her own audience. She hadn't learned how to navigate the industry without a label protecting her. Her entire identity, to the world, to herself, was built on that AGT moment and the machine that capitalized on it. When the machine moved on, Courtney had nothing. The depression was immediate. Then came the agoraphobia. For 3 months, Courtney couldn't leave her house. Not just didn't want to. Couldn't. The psychological weight of global visibility combined with total professional abandonment created a paralysis that was almost total. She was trapped in a space smaller than her talent, unable to move, unable to reach out, unable to explain to anyone what was happening because she had no vocabulary for it. Then in 2025, a physical crisis compounded the psychological one. Courtney suffered a vocal hemorrhage. Her voice, the instrument that had defined her entire identity, the thing that made her extraordinary, was suddenly, completely gone. Not injured. Silenced. She couldn't sing. She couldn't speak easily. She was forced into the very silence that had defined her childhood, but this time as an adult who had experienced worldwide acclaim and complete abandonment. Online, false rumors spread. Fans created tribute pages. The internet was writing her eulogy while she sat alone, unable to respond, unable to defend herself, unable to use the one tool that had ever made her feel powerful. What happened to Courtney Hadwin reveals 5 systemic failures in the entertainment industry that most artists never recover from. Record labels identify talent and immediately begin reshaping it. They're not interested in artists. They're interested in products. They take the thing that makes an artist extraordinary, their uniqueness, and they systematize it. They remove the rough edges that made the artist compelling in the first place. By the time an artist reaches the public, they've been through a committee designed to strip away authenticity. When that committee disappears, the artist has no sense of who they actually are. Labels build no psychological safety net. Courtney was signed at 15. She was given no therapist, no mentor, no person whose job was to protect her mental health as her fame escalated. She was given studio time and marketing strategy. That's not an artist development system. That's an extraction apparatus. When it stopped extracting value, it stopped existing. Courtney's 200 million views weren't fans. They were viewers. People who watched a moment, not a person. When the label dissolved, Courtney had no actual fan community, no people who knew her, cared about her growth, or would stick with her when the machine abandoned her. She had viral metrics and nothing else. Courtney was 15 when her life changed. 15. The entertainment industry signed her, exposed her to hundreds of millions of people, placed her on television internationally, and then offered no legal protection, no parental oversight, no industry accountability when things fell apart. A 15-year-old girl with severe anxiety was treated like a 30-year-old professional. After Psycho dissolved, Courtney disappeared from public view completely. No statement. No explanation. No transparency about what had happened. The industry's silence became her silence. She was too young to fight back. Too inexperienced to understand her own rights. So she simply vanished. But what happened in her silence, over the years she disappeared from public view, is actually the most important part of this story. In 2023 and 2024, while the world had forgotten Courtney Hadwin, she was doing something the industry never expected. She was writing. For the first time in her entire musical life, Courtney was creating original music. Not covers selected by committee. Not songs designed for radio. Original songs written by her, about her pain, processed through her own artistic lens. This was revolutionary because it had never happened before. From age 9 to 20, Courtney's entire musical existence had been controlled by someone else's vision. The schoolyard performance, the viral video, the Voice Kids audition, AGT, these were unfiltered. But from the moment Psycho signed her, every note had been approved by committee. Every song chosen by people who were not her. In silence, in agoraphobia, in vocal recovery, Courtney finally became an artist. In early 2025, she released her first independent single, Breakable. The title itself was defiant. Not unbreakable. Breakable. Vulnerable. Human. The lyrics processed her entire journey, the anxiety, the fame, the abandonment, the silence, the recovery. But more importantly, the video and the rollout came with a statement, "It's all me for this one." Completely independent. Finally doing it my way. For the first time, Courtney Hadwin was claiming her own voice, not metaphorically, but literally. After months of vocal recovery, she had earned back the thing the label had tried to commodify and the hemorrhage had tried to steal. Her voice. Her actual voice. By late 2025, Courtney released a complete debut album. 12 original tracks. 12 songs written during the years she was invisible to the industry. 12 pieces of evidence that the extraordinary talent the world had forgotten about was never actually gone. It was just waiting. Healing. Becoming something more sophisticated than raw power, it was becoming intentional artistry. The voice was different now than it had been at 15. Deeper in some ways. More controlled in others. But unmistakably hers, not shaped by committee, not designed for algorithm, not manufactured for consumption. Created by an artist who had learned the hardest lesson the industry teaches, that your voice is only powerful when it belongs to you. Courtney Hadwin's story is not a redemption arc in the traditional sense. She didn't come back to reclaim her AGT fame. She didn't sign with another major label. She didn't attempt to recreate the viral moment that made her famous. Instead, she chose something harder and more honest. She chose herself. Today, Courtney represents something the entertainment industry doesn't know how to market. An artist who has experienced both viral fame and total abandonment, who has recovered her voice both literally and metaphorically, and who has decided that independence matters more than recognition. She releases music on her own terms. She controls her narrative. She decides when to be visible and when to remain private. Her story raises a question that the industry actively avoids. How many Courtney Hadwins are there? How many extraordinary talents does the machine discover, reshape, abandon, and silence? How many teenagers experience what she experienced and never recover? How many talented people have their voice taken from them? Not their singing voice, but their artistic voice, their agency, their sense of self. Courtney's recovery suggests that it is possible to reclaim these things. That silence can be healing rather than destructive. That the most powerful statement an artist can make is not a viral moment but the slow, deliberate act of becoming yourself. So here's what I want to ask you directly. Do you think Courtney Hadwin's story is a success or a tragedy, or is it actually both at the same time? Success because she survived and reclaimed her voice. A tragedy because she had to lose everything to learn that her voice was worth more than the industry's recognition. What's your honest take? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because I genuinely believe this conversation matters. Courtney's story is about one teenage girl from an English village, but it's really about how we treat talent in the entertainment industry, how we discover it, reshape it, and discard it when something newer and shinier arrives. If her journey moved you, if it made you think differently about viral moments and record labels and what it actually costs to become famous, please like and subscribe. We need more stories like this, stories that look beneath the surface of industry success and ask hard questions about who pays the price for our entertainment. Thank you for watching.